All right. Hi, everyone. So welcome to this edition of the Master Implementers interview series. Right. So today, right, we have someone that I've been trying to get for a couple of months. I'm excited, right? And we miss Jeraldine, right, to be on board. So thanks, Jeraldine, for coming on board for the interview, right? And yeah, before we begin, you want to start share a little bit about what you do, right? What you're currently doing, and before we start for the rest of the interview today.
Sure, thank you, Mark. Very happy to finally, do this session with you, and really appreciate your patience with me in trying to arrange a time and everything. I'm super excited to be here. So for those of you who are seeing me for the first time, my name is Jeraldine. So I care about the challenges and aspirations of our generation. So I create content around how we can all cope with the high cost of living, build rewarding careers, as well as lead more meaningful lives. But I'm not really a full-time kind of content creator. I also have a day job. So in my day job, I work in the software industry. And that's basically a quick introduction about myself. Yeah.
So wonderful, right? And so from what I gathered, right, from your website and seeing how we have been doing for the different channels, right? You are a blogger, right? You have your own website. You're a writer, you write different articles, right? You not only on your own website, but different channels on Facebook, right? And whatnot, right? You also volunteer in different communities as well, right? To be on the ground to help to support people out, right? You constantly share productivity tips, strategies, right? Instagram career tips, right? You also help some folks with a career as well. So you're doing quite a bit of things besides your nine to five full-time job is pretty intense as well. So I think the first question I would have, right, is like, what made you so driven, right, to not just stick to a simple 9 to 5 job and just to live like most people would do, 9 to 5, go home, rest, chill, sleep, like what drives you, right, and what excites you, right, to be doing what you do today?
I guess that for me, I do perceive my life, right, as something that I want to be balanced about. So what I mean by that is that work is just one segment of it. Of course, it's a very important segment because for many of us, work takes up like maybe about 8 hours per day and sometimes even more. Whereas for me, I was thinking about the rest of the time that I have outside of work. I really want to optimize it in different aspects. Maybe use it for personal growth, to develop myself, as well as to contribute back to my generation and the people that I care about. So that's what really drives me. It's like I don't see work as the main and solely most important thing in my life. I also care about life as a whole, right? There's so much more aspects to life, and sometimes when we're caught up in the daily grind of things, we sometimes forget that.
Yeah, and how did that mindset begin? Was it a magical when before you went to school, right? You just thought of I just want to be kind of, or was it something or some events that triggered you to have that desire? Was it since the first day you were your first job after you graduated, it was that you had a mindset, or was it nurtured and it was driven over time, right, with different experiences or different input along the way?
I guess it's not really something very recent. I think I've been this way for quite some time already. Yeah. So I guess when I was one of the big drivers was maybe my father, because when I was young, I would see my father being able to balance his work and life very well. So he actually spent quite a bit of time with us as children, and that's really a role model that I look up to, right? I mean, if my dad's able to balance, to do well his career and also to do well in family life, that's something that I want to emulate as well. And on top of that, he also makes times for his hobbies. Like he actually enjoys baking. And he dedicates quite a lot of time to that. He even took a baking diploma and all. So, it's having this kind of well-rounded life that is something that I aspire towards since I was a child. Other than my dad, another factor that really compelled me, right, to want to create a balanced life was my transition from JC to university. So JC was really mostly about studies because you just have 2 years to prepare for A levels. Whereas uni was a much more wonderful experience. So maybe you just have school about 3 times per week, and then the rest of the time dedicate to other pursuits, right? So for me, I was pretty active. I did a lot of volunteer work with environmental societies. I went on exchange. I did internships and took part in public policy and debate competition as well. So it was all this experience that really truly value added to my university life. And I would say that university is really one of the best times in my life, and I really want to continue to live this way. So when I started work, I knew that work wasn't going to be the only thing for me. It's going to be a very important part, but it's not the only thing in my life. I want to make sure that I continue to be a student in life, to enrich myself with all these activities and also to do my part for the community as well.
Oh, I love it. So the desire started, okay, so Mama was it from your dad, right? Because there was a lot of positive experiences from your environment there. And then, right, was the fact that you went to university, right? JC, you probably like what happened is a lot of studies, a lot of intensity, as we know in the Singapore space. And then uni, right, you started opening up, right? Went to exchanges and then open up the mindset. So I love it. So and I guess what happened, right? Well, when you did your first full-time job, right, was it very instant for you to, like, for example, build your own website? To start volunteering, right? Was it a very natural thing for you, right? And were there some challenges you faced along that way, right? Where whether is it some people, for example, might face like imposter syndrome, right? Or they might face that I have no idea where to start. How do I get my first audience? Like, were there some challenges that you faced at the point of time, and how do you manage to address it, right? Of sorts, when you first started out in your journey, right? Of creating all these different side hustles for yourself.
So I actually started being a content creator. So I just put myself as content creator, not blogger, because these days I create content on much more
Yes.
areas, right? Like LinkedIn, Instagram, and not just like my blog alone. So that's why I classify myself as a content creator, I guess. Yeah. So actually this journey actually started in before I graduated. Yeah. So back then I was actually writing more about current affairs. And the idea wasn't really about like, oh, I need to get followers and stuff. It was more like I wanted to talk about social economic issues, and then there's no one to talk to me about it. So I just like a blog online, and then like hope that there will be people who would kind of like respond and engage me in discussions. And it's also a way for me to summarize my learnings. But after a while, I realized that more and more people were like following me, and that's when I started to think like, okay, I would like to take this a little bit more seriously. So I went to read up on topics like, search engine optimization, content creation, writing for website design, how to use WordPress properly, what are the kind of like widgets that you need and all that. And even things like user experience, how do you actually retain someone on your site when you design it and all. So these are the kind of like skills that I picked up along the way. And then eventually I decided to pivot from writing about current affairs to, writing about like personal development. Not that I don't comment on current affairs anymore, I still do. It's just that for policies to change, they tend to take a bit of time. So I would rather like also focus on issues that young people actually can care about and take action on an immediate or short-term basis. So it's like complementing the long-term solutions with the short-term individual actions that one can take.
Yeah, and so from what I hear, right, it's a very big message, which is the fact that when you first started out, it's not like you had a master game plan, right, for the next 10 years of your writing or your content creation journey, right? It was a very like you started small, right, and then you grew up, and then you realized, okay, what could help out with me getting more value, right? Maybe SEO, right? Maybe content, maybe the website design, and then it grew over time to what you're doing right now. And so I think it's a big message for a lot of people out there that you don't have to start with a perfect plan, right? It's about just starting out and then just moving forward, right, with where you want to go. Yeah. Yes, and I guess the next question, so moving a little bit to your career before we go back, right, to the space of your content creation journey, right, which is when it comes to finding like a rewarding career, right? A lot of people say that I want to find a job that I love, that I feel aligned with, that pays good money, right? There's a good boss, I get to learn, there's a lot of things, right? So I think for you, right, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes you feel that people are making, right, when starting out, right, in their quest, right, to find a rewarding career for themselves?
So I guess that for our generation, it's a little bit different from the previous ones because there's a lot of emphasis on passion. So let's think about history, right? When we think about our parents, or I mean, some of our parents, I guess, or maybe our grandparents, the idea of passion didn't really exist. Or maybe it wasn't that popular, right? People tend to focus more on like, the job is for survival. So that kind of thing. Yeah, and stuff like that. But I guess the perception of a career has evolved and people want to feel fulfilled by it as well. But the tricky thing about passion is, yes, it is a wonderful thing. And I think that if you are listening to this and you are someone who is doing your passion as a day job, right, I really feel that you are one of the lucky minorities. But then again, the idea of passion makes like, it's something that a lot of people are chasing after. Like they feel that, when they do a job, it has to be something that fulfills them like 100%. But then again, there's two things I would like the audience to think about. One of it is that maybe passion perhaps could be something that is cultivated when you become good at something, rather than a feeling, right, that just like exists and all. And also, it's kind of like, is it realistic for a job to fulfill all your needs, right? Like all your intellectual needs, your like emotional needs and everything. Will you be better off if you just think about maybe top 3 things that you would like in a job, and then as long as it fulfills it, that's fine, correct? Because it's the same, like, I mean, I like to draw the analogy between job and dating, right? It's very hard to find like a person who can fit all your requirements and like you're forever in love with them 100%, right? That kind of thing. So it's like, I mean, even for that, there'll be some days that are good, some days that are bad, but it's kind of like, as long as you know your purpose and your reason for being there, and you're committed to it, then I think that, that could be something satisfying as well.
Yeah, and I think that the core thing what you mentioned is that, like, don't expect to have like everything right one shot right about the career purpose. It's like finding the perfect ideal girlfriend boyfriend, right? We sometimes right, you got to accept some of the imperfections and some of the changes as well, right? And so I think with that context, right, share a little bit about of your own personal career journey, right? Since you graduated, and how do you get to where you are, right? Because from what I've seen on LinkedIn, right, from what I've seen, right, how people share about you, like you are doing very well in career, right? And I don't think it's an overnight thing where you knew exactly what to do right now. So how did you actually, how was your career evolve, right, over the years for yourself?
So when I first graduated, I was kind of like in that phase where I didn't know what I want to do exactly. So I think that's the same for many people who study general degrees. So I actually graduated with, actually read journalism and public policy at university. So when I came out, I was thinking like, okay, what should I do, right? There's 2 options that I narrowed down to. So one is public policy, of course, because I'm really like current affairs and, analyzing policies and the analytical intellectual aspect of things. And secondly, I was thinking about marketing, because that was the more creative side of things as well. And the third one will actually be business development. But eventually, I settled on business development because I felt that was the career that actually fulfills my life goals and also suited my personality the most.
Okay.
And I've never moved into the other areas in the future, but I guess that right now at this point in my life, it is this idea of business development, sales, that is something that is the most rewarding to me.
Nice. And so what were, as I'm just curious, right, at least from my, like, what were some of your biggest lessons you picked up, right, from your past 2 to 3 years, right, and your business development roles, right, that you picked up all along the way, right, through the work in MNCs, the startups? What do you think were some of the biggest lessons you have picked up over the years when it comes to this space?
When you say lessons, do you mean like, lessons related to performance or lessons?
So through your experiences, right, when it comes to performance and actually trying to position and getting more folks, right, to whether it's buy from you, purchase from you, right, or just general like mindset lessons you might have learned over the past couple of years in this space.
Yeah, I guess it will be three things. So first of all, it's like I think that the ability to work well with people is something that is very critical. And I wish that, I was like much better at it at the start. So things like, having a team, how do you actually motivate them to engage with you, to work with you? How do you manage upwards, sideways, and also downwards? These are very critical skills that, I feel that are very important to learn. And I'm still work in progress for me. I don't think anyone's like perfect at this, but I think that's really critical for, anyone in the workforce, right, to do that, because it not only helps you to achieve your objective, it also creates a more pleasant environment for everyone. I'm sure all of us here, have experienced, like a boss that we totally like hated working under, right? And how much pain that caused the team and themselves. So, I think it's very important to work on things like communication skills and also teamwork. So that's one. Second aspect would actually be constant reflection and growth. We need to have the mindset that, learning doesn't stop at university. We are all work in progress, right? We're all trying to develop. And I'm sure that for Mark yourself, you are a different person last year, this time versus now, correct? So same for me, I was a different person last year, this time versus now, and we are all work in progress. So I think the importance of continuous development, growth, and learning, these are very critical things to keep in mind and to do. So it's not just about learning about the industry, the product, the company itself, but it could also extend to other things like the soft skills that I mentioned earlier, or maybe just like, broadening your horizons outside your circle of competence. These are critical things too. And I guess finally, it's like, don't neglect health, because health is something that we don't think about as youngsters, right? Because we take it for granted that we are forever healthy. But the truth is that, aging catch up to us all. I mean, metabolism was slow. Some of us are probably heavier than we were 5 years ago, right? Sadly, and all that. Yeah, so I think that health is very critical. And if you think about it, your body is what you use to not only experience the world, but also to achieve the things you want, right? In your relationships, your health, your career, and then also like, even giving back to society and stuff like that. So for me, health is always one of my top priorities, and it's very critical to do things like, get enough sleep, work on your mental health and exercise regularly and all that. Yeah.
Oh, I love it, right? So three very core important things, right? If you want to just perform highly, right, in your career, right? So the big lessons that we actually can pick up off, right? Which is communication, soft skills goes be so important to this world, right? Especially I think if you're in a country like Singapore, right, or in a Malaysia, right, where like ultimately all this like technical skills, right, is eventually, right, or is already in the process of getting outsourced, right? Then I think you talk about reflecting your own growth, right, personal growth, right? And we just ask you a quick question about this, right? But the third one is to talk about health. But going back on what you talk about, like reflection and growth, right? Like, what's your comments, right, on folks who says that, hey, like my boss, my colleagues, my company, right, must help me to grow, right? As compared to, okay, right, whatever the company is doing, right, whatever the company is doing for me, whatever I'm at, right, I'm going to take charge of my own growth. Like for you, right, what's your philosophy of your own personal growth, right? Do you rely fully on your bosses, your colleagues, your team, right, or you take it all charge on your own? Like, what's your philosophy? How do you balance it, at least for yourself, on a personal basis?
Okay, so I do understand that there could be people who feel that the company is responsible for their career growth. And I feel that if you are in a company who is taking a lot of ownership of your career growth, is a very good thing for you, and you're very lucky. But the thing is that I guess that for many organizations, they don't really do that much, and not many of us are privileged to be in those organizations as well. So ultimately, I feel that for myself at least, having control over my own learning and growth is critical for me. So things like going to do my own research about the industry, networking with people, reading books, trying to like do my own self-learning, talking to people and stuff like that. These are things that I take ownership over and use them to, further my career and also my knowledge and skills.
Yeah, and so okay, the one big word I heard, right, as in I hear my head when I hear what you say, right, it's just being very proactive, right? Instead of just waiting for others to support you, right? Is you be proactive to go and develop and to drive your own learning, your personal growth, right, and your progress, right, in your career, right? And even your other areas of your life. So I would say, right, if for someone who is completely starting out, right, for someone who is new, right, who in the space of like, I need to take charge of my own, like, what do you think would be, let's say, one or two tips, right, when it comes to being proactive in growth and learning? What do you think is like the one or two things that you advise, or you think that they should get started on, right, to actually become, let's say, more effective or high performing in their career? Like, if they want to start being more proactive with themselves instead of waiting for the government, right, or the companies to help them out.
I guess it begins with research. At least that's how I would begin. It's kind of like knowing where you want to be, having a rough idea, and then trying to look at, what I would do previously is actually look at people's LinkedIn profiles a lot, because that will give, there's no other time in our life, right, that we have so many people's resumes at our fingertips. So LinkedIn is really valuable. I use it for research to see what kind of companies people join, where they go, what makes them do well, and how long they stay, and things like that. So I use that to kind of like map out and plan like my next steps at least.
Oh.
I would say I'm the kind of person who plan like 5 years, 10 years ahead. At least for the next 2-3 years, I have a rough idea of what I want to do and all that. So I think planning helps. And once you actually done your research, right, you'll be able to know like, okay, what are the skills that are important, right? What are the kind of like characteristics that are important? And that's one, that's research. Second is, of course, honest self-reflection. So for me, I never feel that there is any flaw, right, in being someone who, how to say, like there's no fault in being someone who has flaws, because all of us have flaws. What is critical is that we are honest about our flaws, we work on it, and we approach this entire self-reflection with a lot of humility. So it's sometimes not very easy, right? Like when you have to admit your flaws to yourself, like in my case, like realizing that I could be too blunt sometimes, and then and all that. So it's not very easy to do that, but I think that once you do, you'll be able to kind of like remove the weaknesses that stand in your way of achieving what you want, and then reach the next level of greater heights. Yeah.
Oh, hey, I love it. I think too, like it sounds very like simple, right? But I think it's very underrated, right? Because right now, I think number one is, instead of you trying to think of what you want to do or how to position yourself like from your head, right, is you go and research, right? I think on your case is LinkedIn, right? Finding out what people are doing, what companies are they joining, right? And I know there's a lot of good content over there in LinkedIn, right? They might not find anywhere else. I think number two, right, is actually honest self-reflection, right? So I want to go a bit deeper on both if I could, right? Because I think these are great tips, right? So I think number one, right, when you share about, researching about where you want to go, right? And I know you earlier mentioned, I only have a rough direction for the next 2 to 3 years, but I guess we'll share a bit deeper about philosophy about like planning your career goals, your life goals, right? In not just in the short term, but the mid and the long term. Like, what are some of your philosophy and how do you actually go about doing it for yourself? Like, how do you know that like right now this is the space you want to be at, and how does it bring you moving forward? Like, what's your philosophy and how's your mindset when it comes to this space?
Actually, one of the most insightful things I heard about career planning is from this gentleman named Frank Hu. So Frank actually leads the LinkedIn Asia team, and he shared with me this tip over coffee. So his analogy is basically like a career is like a jungle gym, and to move from step to step, we need to first develop muscles, right? Correct? Because it's very important for us to build those relevant skills that bring us to the next steps. Secondly, to know your environment. Because when you know the landscape and what are some of the long-term changes, what are some of the disruptions, right? You will know how to seize opportunities better. And third is really having the network, right? Because that actually serves as our safety net and also helps us to move and connect from place to place.
Oh, nice. Wow, I love it. So moving forward, right? And then when you talk about networks, right? Like how would, so I think that something that audience would definitely learn from and benefit from, which is like what's your overall I would say strategy, or just your overall space about how do you actually connect, right, with people that might be relevant to your industry, right? Like how do you network per se? Because I think some people are like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to reach out to people who might be more successful, right, or more famous or more popular than me. Like how would you do it on yourself, like over the years?
Before COVID, I just challenged myself to go for like some new event. So it could be any event related to environmental issues, which I like, finance, or maybe like, tech and all that. And I would just go alone so that I force myself to maybe just bring one other person, so that I force myself to engage and talk to people. And my like own personal KPI was like once every quarter. Yeah, so that's before COVID. Yeah. After COVID, it became a lot more challenging to get to know new people. But a strategy that has worked for me is using the online method. So one of them is actually writing to people on LinkedIn and asking to do a Zoom catch up or something. And secondly is referrals, right? So like if it's just like mark how we know each other is actually through our common friend, correct? So it's like referrals, a very critical aspect of things as well.
Oh, nice. Okay, so very simple, right? Very simple strategies, right? But I think it's powerful, right? Go networking events. I love the fact you put KPIs for yourself, right? For it to just direct. And I think the power of referrals, right? Because I think what happens is if you hang out with a group of like-minded people they align their values with, chances are they probably have friends, right? Or networks that probably align, right, with it. So I think referrals is a very underrated way, right, to actually get to connect with more people that might be able to support, right, you in a win-win relationship, right, into the next level as well.
Add on to that, right? I think our common friend Melvin shared with me before that, like attracts like. We are drawn to people who have similar values as us. So, it's kind of like when you, like example, like when I met people who are interested in finance, right? And took their financial freedom and like, manage their finances really well and stuff like that. So that actually compelled me to kind of like naturally get to know other people who are similar, because they actually bring their common friends along, and that's how we actually all build this network together. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good way. So especially if you're trying to develop, let's say, another area like finance, right, which is out of Korea perhaps, right? Then you can surround yourself with people, right, who are really strong in finance. So I know that you network in different spaces, right? Personal finance, investing, right? And there's that. So and I guess the next question is from what we have gathered so far, right, through the interview, right, is at least from my experience, right, is you're someone who gets a lot of things done, right? So I guess the next question is like, and how do you actually get so much done, right, with the limited time that we guys have, right? When it comes to finances, right, career, right, networking, right, volunteering on the ground, like how do you actually get so much done? What are some of your productivity or your time management tips, right? If you could be pretty useful for the folks out there who is trying to balance all these different areas of their lives.
There are two aspects to this. So people always talk about time management, but they don't talk about energy management. So I talk about energy management. So the first thing before you manage time is to actually manage energy. So how do you do that? It's really, first of all, I think, like I'm going back to my health point earlier. I know this is not a health podcast, but health is very important. Yeah, it's about staying in tip-top condition. So things like eating right, sleeping well, exercising regularly. These three things cannot be compromised. And also probably for myself, try to do more meditation and all that. Because once your mental and physical health are in tip-top condition, that's when you can really perform and like push yourself throughout the day. Another aspect of energy management is also, making sure that you have enough alone time, right? So for myself, I used to kind of like, try to, like, I mean, as long as my schedule is free, people ask me to meet, I try to do it. But nowadays, I just go out on maybe like Monday, Wednesdays, Saturdays. Not Monday, sorry. Nowadays, I just go out on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturdays. Yeah. Meeting people too often, right, kind of like drains up a lot of my energy.
Yeah.
I think that, in the scale of like extroversion and introversion, I'm like only somewhere in the middle. So having too many appointments is just really too tiring. I mean, not including the fact that, at work we have a lot of Zoom calls and all that. So managing energy is very critical. So that's one, the energy management component. The other aspect is time management. So time management is quite a few skills that I've learned, and I'm happy to share that with your team as well. First of all, it's actually time boxing. So time boxing means to say that rather than have a to-do list, today I'm going to do ABC, you actually put task ABC as part of your calendar. And you include it as part of the calendar. And if you want to see some samples, you can actually go to my Instagram, because I have this Instagram story highlights on productivity, and I actually share some samples there. So this is actually very helpful because it gives you the dedicated time in that day to do it as well. So that's first, time boxing. Secondly, it's really about like front loading, right? So for me, I try to get like most of my important things and like, pack all the stuff on like Monday to Wednesdays, because that's like the start of the week. And then Thursdays and Fridays become a little bit more free for me as well. And by doing so, when you front load all the stuff on Monday to Wednesday, it kind of like put you in that productivity mode, right? You're starting right and everything. And then you are like getting into that kind of like intensity and all that. And then like that actually reduces as the week goes by. So that's actually how I perceive like front loading and its importance in, both managing energy and time. And thirdly is that, I think it's about planning. So every Sunday I actually plan out my entire schedule for the week. And I tend to do this, which is to overestimate time. So let's say something is due on Saturday or Friday, right? I will overestimate the time that I need to do it. Maybe realistically, I only need 2 hours, but probably I will put it as 4 hours, so that, that actually helps me to deal with like any last minute changes or accommodates for any kind of like, other stuff that could come in the way. So these are the few tips that I have for both energy and also time management.
Well, I think it's very powerful, right? So we'll put a link, right, to Jeraldine's Instagram on the description for sure, right? But I think what you just said, I think about number one is not just about time management, about energy management. So obviously health is important, right? Then after that, talk about time boxing, right? One of the most powerful strategies in the whole productivity space, which is why I always like to say that the most powerful productivity app in the world is probably just Google Calendar, right? It's just easy for us to manage, right? And then we talk about front loading, right? And then I think overestimating time is a pretty good thing. But I guess the question, right, people might have is, Jeraldine, right? I would love to overestimate the time I need, right? So that I don't feel so pressured. But there's so many things I want to get done, right? I have my personal commitments, I have my career, right? I want to do investing, I have my side hustles, right? Like so many things, right? So if I start overestimating, right, I'm afraid I cannot get as much done as I would like. So what would your response or what would your direction be that when it comes to like trying to overestimate the time, right? So that you don't feel so pressured, and you also probably just do a better quality job instead of trying to get many things at once. Like what would your overall advice or your strategy be for some folks who might be struggling with that?
So it's like your question is basically if one person has many different commitments, right?
Yeah, like I don't have the luxury, right, to do it. Like, or should I maybe sleep less once in a while? Should I burn out, right? Should I just go hustle for it? Like what would your advice be that generally on that?
Okay, so my view on things is that if you think about it, 80% of your life satisfaction is going to come from only 20% of the things. So it's like Pareto principle, right? And all that. So for me, it starts with, first of all, defining, what's a good life to you. And in my mind, right, at least this is a preliminary idea because I've yet to refine it. My life satisfaction will come from 3 things. So first of all, having good health and financial stability. That's the foundation, because without good health and without financial stability, it's quite hard to be like super happy, I would think. And the second layer is actually deep, meaningful relationships. So things like family, close friends, and all that. And the third aspect is, of course, growth and mastery. So typically, I'll prioritize anything that helps me to achieve these three. And then for the rest of the things, I would actually kind of like put them at a lower priority for now, at least. Yeah.
Well, so for here, it's just very like a ruthless prioritization, right, of your focus, right, your goals, right, so that you don't get caught up with a 10,000 possible commitments that might be there for you, right? So just really focusing on what you really want for yourself.
Yes, yes. I think focus is kind of like underrated, because if you try to do everything, you end up doing everything with half-hearted effort, then that doesn't really, do you any good, both from a performance standpoint and also people's impression of you will get affected. Yeah. I would think about myself when I was younger. I was also in that phase. I want to explore and do many different things, but it turns out that I wasn't giving like my best to each of the things, and then because of that, the people around me in my teams and all that, they were being impacted, right? So it's all about like, okay, what is the most critical things for me right now, and then I focus on that 100%.
Okay, well, I love it. I think that's a good primer when it comes to like focus, right, and prioritization, right? Because ultimately, right, all the strategies, right, yes, what Jeremy shared can be powerful, but if you're someone who tries to be a Superman, try to do everything, right, it's still not going to work out in the long term as well. And I think touching on a little bit when you talk about finance, right, and I know you have been featured a couple of platforms when it comes to how you invest, how you save your money, right? So just to share a little bit like your overview, right, just a quick overview, right, of your approach to managing your finances, handling finances, and I think what would your advice be for millennials when it comes to the whole concept of money management in today's world?
So I guess that when you think about personal finance, for me, I see it as 4 categories. So first of all, is insurance, which is like the basic one, because you need to protect your whatever you have, right? So second aspect will actually be savings, which a lot of people focus on, and all. And the third aspect will be income. The fourth one being investments itself. So I guess that there's a lot of being said about both insurance and also savings, so I won't cover that. For me, if you think about your life as a kind of like, think about money as like a wealth machine, right? So what's flowing inside is actually income. What's going out is expenses. But what grows, whatever is left, is like investing as well. So that's how I actually visualize it. In fact, I did a YouTube video to explain this concept, and I will send you the link so that you include it in the description also. So that's how I actually view the whole personal finance landscape as a whole. But zeroing in on income and investing, I think these are the aspects that I seldom discuss. I feel that, if you are young and you are serious about growing your wealth, then I think income is an aspect that should not be neglected. It's very important to keep, improving yourself, to keep looking for opportunities, stay on top of market rate, network aggressively, so that you can continually grow and scale your income, right? Because once you do that, then I think that makes saving and all that a lot easier. The other aspect, which I guess your audience is more keen about, is actually investing. So for me, my investing philosophy is that I tend to just invest in the industries I understand, which is like e-commerce and software as a service, right? So these are the key industries that I understand. Anything else outside of it, I seldom touch it. I don't really invest in meme stocks. So, stuff like ones that are Reddit and all that, I've never like put money into it. So probably I've lost out that, opportunities, right? Because I didn't do that. But, for me, I'm just very clear on my own investment philosophy, which is very similar to Gautam Bayat, which is who is the author of The Joys of Compounding. So he says that we should not aim for the highest possible returns in the shortest amount of time, but rather we should seek like above average returns over a long period of time with lower risk. Yeah.
I think that's a good overview of your overall financial strategy, right? I think we can put up the videos, right, to go a bit detail into it, because I think this is something that's probably lacking, right? A lot of people in the space today, right, where they have a lot of different views, right? That's getting from everywhere, right? Especially now the whole mania of crypto, right? NFTs, right? People are just jumping and just going crazy into the space. But I love what you said, right? Instead of just chasing like outsized returns for a short period of time, right? How about creating something, right, that can actually create you above average returns, right, for a long period of time, and that is when compounding happens, and that's when you can grow, right, over again without worrying too much about the next hot thing in today's world. All right, so
my philosophy can be a bit boring to some, or like even too safe, but I guess it's really how I manage things. And I guess this is, if you're looking for a method that is consistent and something long term, then this might be something more suitable for you too.
Yeah, and I like to say, right, like, but sometimes also people say like, hey, isn't my investment strategy pretty boring, right? Because right now, like, I go straight into stocks, buying those that are high growth, right? And for my okay, there's my take, right, which is that I choose to have a very boring investment strategy, right? So I can spend more times on other exciting activities, right? Like my business, coaching, right? Productivity, like I think those are more exciting, right, than just investing. So I think I chose to stick to a boring strategy so that I can make more time and mental space, right, for other areas that could be more exciting and at least for me as well. Yeah, and I guess okay, so I think one of the final questions, right? So this is going to be an interesting one, which is so Jeraldine. So for example, right, if you had to start completely from scratch, right, as a young graduate, right, or just someone who might want to do a mini reset of the career, for example, right, someone just starting want to start completely from scratch, right, and with limited skills and experience, right, what will you do in the first 30 days, right? Some of the action steps, right, to not only get back to, let's say, where you are today, right, in this space, right, but even bounce back and to go beyond. Like, what are some of the action steps in the first 30 days, right? Let's say you can actually get it started, right, to actually bounce back to not only where you are, but even beyond. Like, what are some things you would do for yourself?
I guess that in my first 30 days, what I'm going to do is like read as much career books as possible. Not just about like, navigating careers, but also like, about like, managing like internal dynamics in the organization and all that, because that will help me to be a more effective effective employee. And another thing that I might do is, of course, to get rid of some like traditional mindsets, right? Like, you need to stay very long in your first job to prove loyalty and stuff like that. But that's not really the case. Sometimes when you realize that you're no longer learning, it's good to, or it's not really aligned to your future ideas, it's good to just like quit. Quitting is not for losers. In fact, people who quit at the right time, are people who are like wise. Yeah.
I love it. So really the first 30 days, I think it's back to what you said earlier in the video, which is just pure and deep dive research right in the space. And I think that's how you actually become more effective and more strategic of time instead of jumping in right to it, right? Some people say, oh, I want to take a technical course, right? Oh, I'm going to drop ASAP, right? To do and stuff. But for you, it's just to research, right? To strategize your path moving forward so that you actually move faster than everyone else when you actually get started with your journey along the way. All right, great. I love it. So anyway, I think thanks so much, Jeraldine, for today's interview. I think we've shared a lot of different things, right? A lot of different strategies, tips, right? Both on a strategic mindset level and a tactical ones, right? So I guess with that, any final words you have for our audience and where can they find you?
So if you'd like to stay in touch with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and also join my weekly mailing list. So I'll send Mark the links and then he'll put them in the description below. As for final things that I want to say is that, really take ownership, because a lot of us take ownership of a lot of things, right? Like we are busy contributing to the community, to our families and all that. But it's also very important to contribute to yourself, right? And it's not being selfish, because when you are become better, it's kind of like you are giving your best self to the people that you love and also this society as well. So don't be afraid, or like don't procrastinate about like investing in yourself, because ultimately when you get better, like other people benefit too.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Jeraldine. And enjoy this interview. I think a lot of things when it comes to the career aspects, right, and getting way more done with less, right? I think the audience is going to definitely benefit from it. So, guys, if you watch this, right, enjoy the interview, put down in the comments, right? Let me know. And with that, we'll see you for the next edition of the Master Implementers interviews, right? So, thanks, Jeraldine, again, and thanks everyone. Bye, folks.
Bye.